Hey everyone, Sean Corbett. I wanted to have a conversation about something that's real popular today. It's something that we're all kind of getting inundated with different opportunities. And I wanted to discuss the impact it specifically has on homeowners and real estate in general. Most of you obviously know I'm in the real estate business and I do sell quite a few homes. And this is something that I've encountered. And I wanted to bring some of my experiences working with it and try to help educate, the general population about, is it a good thing to get solar panels or is it a negative? I mean, I want to kind of look at the pros and cons and some of the specific examples of things that I run into, and I know you will when you're going to sell your home, hiring a real estate professional. Today, I brought an expert with me, and his name is Keenan Garcia. Keenan and Garcia and I, we go back quite a bit. God, I think at least 6-7 years. It's been a while.
It was about 6 years.
About 6 years.
Yep.
And he has been specifically focused on this particular business and this business model. And he's working with homeowners all over the place on getting solar panels installed in their homes. And there's a number of benefits that most of you are probably aware of. So I wanted to give Keenan an opportunity to give me responses back to questions and experiences that I've had. And I know will resonate with many of you. So Keenan, give us a little background about you and what makes you a particular expert in this field.
Yeah, I appreciate you first having me, Sean, and also his viewers, because this is something that I've mastered. And it's been probably about 4 years since I got into this industry. So for people that don't know me, I'm Keenan Garcia, 31 years old. I live here in Grapevine, Texas. And Sean and I did meet in the real estate industry. So we were doing business together before I got into this new movement. And I think of solar and Tesla and this industry being a movement. So what I do specialize in is helping really understanding solar and how it works with real estate agents. And that's one thing that I'm, passionate about, is helping people get a clear understanding about how they work and what's the reasons why that they would add this to their day-to-day and the benefits of doing so.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're going to challenge some of those things.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. We're going to enjoy this. So when I was reviewing this topic, and I always try to do some background to understand, what is it that we're working through and what is the issues that people are coming into? And then I did research, and when I was looking up concerns about putting solar panels on homes and real estate and how it specifically impacts real estate, there's virtually no negative articles out there. It's almost like there's this blanket of positivity. Everything's great. You're going to make tons of money on your house if you put them on. And that's not been my experience.
Yeah.
And some of it I understand is ignorance and we don't understand. And others are maybe a bad company came out and did a bad job and created a bad situation. I mean, that's certainly something that does come up.
Yeah.
So in my world where, I've probably sold about 300 million in real estate and I've done thousands of transactions. In the transactions that involved solar panels, I'm going to specifically kind of come back through some of that and asking you questions on how do you respond or how do we deal with it.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
So that's specifically what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the industry a little bit, and then we're going to come back at the end and talk about you as real estate agents that are out there. What's a good benefit, or why would you want to even look at solar panels? Because quite honestly, whether you like them or think that they are a hindrance when selling either side, you're going to have to deal with them. So you might as well get the benefit of understanding it in context. So the first thing I always think about in doing the research, I couldn't find any negatives. So I had to kind of just come on my own personal experience.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is things that I've specifically encountered working. So one of the things that I've come into, and this is just me thinking, solar panels have a high upfront cost. Most consumers typically get second liens on their house to cover the cost of purchase and installation. And that lien will need to be paid off in order to sell the home. That's me talking as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
What is your impact, or how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's actually exactly where I wanted to start, because when you say high upfront cost, you got to look at this into an example of what they do with their home. So I want to speak to you freely about when people get solar, it's exactly what they're doing with their home when they look to buy a home. They can either purchase the house cash, right?
Sure.
If they have those type of funds, or they can look at creative financing, which is Um,
And 90% of people aren't just paying cash.
and how many of your clients that you do business with are getting financing or a mortgage on their home?
The majority of them. Me exclusively on the retail side, I would say 95% of them. I'm in a price range of about 3 to 350. So I'm going to find people that are financing them. That's the majority of them. But in my investment side, obviously they're paying cash.
So think about this, because 95% of my clients finance it as well.
Sure.
So whenever people look at solar, look at this as your house. You're doing the same thing that you're doing with your house, you're now doing with your electricity. So that's where I start. So they do have that option. So when they say high upfront cost, they can purchase the solar system cash.
Sure.
The second option, which is 95% of my clients, they have zero down financing. So they can finance the system and there's no money out of your pocket. So which is good, because that takes it from very start to finish, and there's not any money for an exchange of a service. So I think that right there, myth happens to come across real estate agents a lot. But just so you know, there's a solution for that, and it's zero down financing.
Zero down financing. We're not paying cash up front. So they're just rolling it into. Now, I think of it, because that's the way I think about real estate, is everything's in the terms of liens,
Yeah.
right? So it would be second lien if I put a pool in, a mechanics lien for installation of the pool, they want to get repaid. Obviously, there's no asset there for the pool company. They're just paying for their services of doing the work. So they would put a second lien, a mechanics lien on the property. Is this a mechanics lien?
And that's also another, I guess, hot question, because solar, when they do own the system, because they own it day one. So there's no liens on properties, because it's not another company that is putting a lien on that property. What they're doing is that they're taking out a loan and they'll file a UCC1. And what that was, and I know we discussed this prior to.
Does it pull up in public records? Do you know? Like, it's got to show up somewhere, or because I know as a condition of selling it, they're required to address that somehow.
That is true. Yes. Now, there's multiple lenders that we work with, which are actually in the mortgage space. So have you ever heard of GoodLeap? GoodLeap is a refinance company. So they do a lot of home loans as well. We use GoodLeap and multiple other credible resources, but they're just taking out a loan for their solar system. And what they do is they file a UCC1, and it's a fixture filing. And what that is only going to do is protect that lender. So there's no liens on properties. Now, if they go default on their payment, that's whenever they can take that asset back, because it's not paid for yet. So once the system's paid off, that, let's just say, loan is paid for, that UCC1 file is released.
Released, okay.
And a big concern is when real estate agents are selling homes, what happens to that loan, and do they have to pay it off before they sell? Have you had that happen?
Oh, for sure. And that's going to be one of my questions coming up. I'll let you answer that in a minute.
Beautiful.
So UCC1, I think if I understand correctly, it's not about releasing so in order for you to purchase a property, you have to have a house free of any clouds and encumbrances on the property. So because of the way that is set up and filed against the property, and it's not a lien, it can be actually transferred from one owner to another owner.
Yes.
Which is a distinction between liens. Liens actually have to be released and paid off in order to secure a new.
It can be lifted and transferred to the new owner, as long as it's presented the right way. That's never been an issue with the homes that we sell. And there's studies out there, because we don't want to say claims. I reference studies. And there's a study by the NREL, and it's the U.S. Department of Energy. And if they have the right systems, right warranty set in place, homes sell on the market 20% faster and 3 to 6% more. And I know that's a touchy subject because of the appraisal. It doesn't appraise the home more, but they're adding an asset on the home as a selling feature.
Yeah.
So maybe that might be a question.
Well, and sellers, look at it as it's a asset I paid for. I want to add that to the cost of the home. And that's where we do have a challenge, right? Because we're talking about, is it now going to affect the appraised value when we go to sell? And as far as I can tell, it doesn't.
No, there's no
value assessed or added to by appraisals for having a solar panel on the home. This is really important because it goes to my next point. If I have a homeowner that's saying, I'm going to move in the next, 3 to 5 years, but I really want to take advantage of tax credits. I know that's not something you specifically want to talk about because there's a lot of ways it works, but that's one of the number one incentives. People get in, right? There's no cost to get in, no cost up front. The government may write me a check, in tax credits. And I've got the ability to replace my $300 electric bill with maybe it's a $150 electric bill and a $150, solar panel bill, which is still $300, but eventually that's supposed to be reducing over time, right? That's the objective. Yeah. And I want to talk about those benefits specifically. I'm more interested in, how does it affect the seller? So if a seller says, I'm going to move in 3 to 5 years, what are you telling them? Do you install a solar panel system? What do you tell them?
Yeah. And so I'm going to take it back to me as the sales representative talking to a homeowner that brings that up in that scenario. So if I'm doing business with the client and they say, I'm thinking about moving in 5 years, I'm going to bring that up prior to them making the decision on some of the benefits on why they would do that. So first, if they're going to be in a place for 5 years, that's the best thing that we can work with because we know our time, that, time frame that they're going to be there. The benefit number one is that they're locking in a payment that doesn't increase. So I'd say that's the benefit for you as
it's just a straight loan.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just replacing a bill that they're already paying. And the second benefit would be to pay towards a principal and know where your money is going. Because if the real estate agent does their job, peaking the right buyers with a pre-installed Tesla system, battery backups included, and then they pay off a certain percentage of that loan, they can use that as a selling tool and leverage because let's just say they paid $5,000 towards their loans. That's $5,000 that the new potential buyer doesn't have to pay towards. And that's a benefit because it all transfers now. A lot of real estate agents think that they have to pay off the whole loan prior to them selling. And I'll tell that to my client sitting across and saying, hey, in 5 years, you don't have to pay off this loan. You can if you want to, but it all transfers over to the new buyer and they grandfather into your payments. And that's a good selling feature because I guess let me ask you a question. This is a good question to you, is if you were listing a home and you were piquing some of the interest, would it be a benefit to tell the homeowner that's buying into the home what their utility bill would be?
Oh, sure. Yeah. They're going to ask, right? They've got a solar system. Are you asking me as a buyer or the listing agent?
Well, that's you as a listing agent.
It's the same question, right? So if I'm selling their home, hey, I need to promote this thing. And these are things that I would want to know. Yeah, let's tell me your system is currently engaging and saving. So this will be a selling feature for the buyer, 100%.
Yeah. And that's one bill that we don't know moving into a home. And I'm sure you get that question. Do you know what the average utility bill?
That's interesting. It does control the bill, right? Instead of a variable rate on your electric. Because, most of us probably have seen or know people that have that $500 to $600 electric bills.
Here in Texas, that's like the average, I'd say, or maybe just a little bit north of an average. But you got to think of it whenever I'm piquing someone's interest to state that is knowing that in 5 years from now, your bill won't be what it is now first. But if you get solar on your,
well, it ain't going to go down.
It ain't going down. No, and the average
electricity does not get less expensive to make.
It doesn't, and that's one bill that has to be paid. So a residual bill that has to be paid, locking in a payment would be the first thing that I would tell anyone that's looking to sell their home in 5 years. This is the first thing I would do. So you're locking in a bill, you're controlling inflation. So that's right there is like you're not going to see any increased payments, and then another benefit is a payment that's going towards a balance versus a liability. So there's some things that I really like to discuss, and that's just a couple of them.
Okay, let's talk about transferring, as we kind of mentioned this. So I've got a solar panel system. My seller has it, and now we're specifically talking about ownership. Do you sell lease systems? Okay, so what's the difference between lease and purchase? So in general statement for agents to know how to advise clients, sell, lease or own?
Yeah, and that's a great question because you got to know your options. And I don't expect any real estate agents to know anything about solar, but then from there disposition it to someone that can give them and their clients different options. Number one is they can do financing, which is purchase. Number two is a lease. And the lease option is identical to the purchase. The only exception that they're really seeing the difference from is someone else owns the solar system, and it's a power purchase agreement. So someone
They purchase the ability to purchase it later.
and that actually is attractive for a lot of people.
To keep the payments lower because you're not paying anything against the principal.
It keeps the payment where the payment is. So it's going to be a fixed payment, just like your finance option. But the best thing about the PPA, because I'm more attracted to the PPA right now, is you're truly doing a bill swap. You're agreeing to pay for the power that's coming out of the solar panels versus the grid. So you do get to lock in that payment, and it's a fixed bill pay every single month. And then they have an option now with every lease is 5-year option to purchase. So this completely changed the game on a PPA lease, is knowing that it defeats the purpose if you were going to continue the lease.
Oh, so I've got the payments the same on lease and the lease and purchase. Why would I not want to be having principal reduction if my payment's the same?
There is principal reduction on the PPA if they consider
Using technical terms, PPA is referring to the lease option. Yeah. Okay. So there is principal reduction built into the lease. So it was $30,000 day one. In 5 years now, it's $25,000.
Yeah.
So there's a small amount of reduction.
is every payment that they make for the first 5 years, which is 60 months, goes towards their payoff request.
Is a lease for like if my credit's not as good? I mean, what's the purpose? Why would I do a lease?
That's an amazing question. And there's multiple answers to that. The number one reason why people get a lease and PPA is for tax disqualification. So there's a 30% IRS, it's called the Inflation Reduction Act, that they don't qualify for. So if they don't have taxable income, if they don't have the taxable liability, they would consider the lease because the leasing company is taking all of those tax credits versus the loan, you get the tax credit.
So you lose the tax credit benefit if you do the lease.
Yes, there's no difference from the loan to the lease because the tax credit that you get from the loan is going towards to pay off an assumed principal. So I guess the benefit is knowing that you don't have to worry and you're bypassing that tax credit. Okay. I know it's
a little technical. I think for me selling property and they have a lease in place, I feel like it creates a lot more sticky, less sellable feature if the new homeowner can't just purchase. I'm sure they could, right? They probably could. They could probably purchase and pay whatever that is to pay off that lease and as part of their purchase agreement. I mean, there's some options, I'm sure, for that. That's a lot of cash. I mean, it's a lot of upfront cash in order to facilitate that. And I know you've got some programs we'll talk about later that agents can actually tap into using FHA loans to buy solar panels. We'll talk about that at the end. So I know there's misinformation when people are listing and selling homes and trying to work through that. As far as we talked about tax credit, I want to cover that again. What happens when a buyer is looking at the property and says, you know what, I don't want the lease or I'm not interested in solar panels. So where does that leave the seller?
Yeah. So you're saying that
they would love the house, they want the home, they don't want the panel. Yeah, they don't want the panels.
You know, that is a tough response if you're dead set on selling that house to that one person, but that's not the buyer. I would simply say that is you need to find the right buyer, and by piquing the interest from someone that wants a home with the pre-installed system on.
Well, can they transfer it to another?
It depends on if they own it.
And it's hard because it was designed for that roof. You can't just go throw that same panel on every roof out there because they're kind of designed.
Yeah, they can. So I'm going to tell everyone, this is not what I recommend. They own the system. There is a loan on it that they're responsible for, and they can take the system off the roof. Now, there's really nothing they can do with it. They would have to go through the whole permitting, engineering design to put it on a new roof. It's their system, so they can do what they want.
So that's not very common that people actually take them off of the house that was installed on.
It's very uncommon, and it's not recommended because there's some problems that come up with solar. And if you're listing a property that has problems, it's not anything that can't be addressed and solved. And that's where you and I actually talked about this a couple weeks ago, is calling someone that knows what problems do come up in solar and getting advice on what the new buyer could potentially do is a big mission statement for me, because it's never the solar that has the bad reputation. It's the person that put it up on their roof that sold it to them.
Sure.
Misrepresented. So we can solve problems. And my recommendation to any real estate agent that is having a home being listed that's having problems with, let's just say the system's not producing enough, or they're having 2 utility bills. I see this all the time. They need to call someone that knows on how to address it, because that problem can be solved. And that's a huge mission statement.
Sure. And I know it's case by case. They all have specific intricacies. That's why I like, whenever I'm working with agents and they start giving me these hypotheticals, I'm like, I could give you answers on how to resolve some of this stuff, but the reality is, give me a real problem. And then that way I can actually attach opportunities on how we address it and fix it. What about if, and these are going to be more common things you say, I'll stay away from some of the specifics. So if and I'm not even when I talk about the solar panels getting damaged, that's more in your realm. And I'm sure there's warranties and things to address stuff like that. How about for roof replacement?
Yeah.
So the idea when you install this is the way I understand it. Solar panels are supposed to be installed on a roof that's probably 5 years or newer, or they have some type of restrictions. Like, you wouldn't want to put it on a house that's got a 15-year-old roof that needs to be replaced.
Yeah, right.
Because it's just a waste of energy and time. We might as well file a roof claim and get it all done.
100%.
So I'm assuming you're putting it on a roof that's reasonably dated, but we started doing all this 5-7 years ago, if not longer, putting solar panels on consistently on a wide scale. So now we're getting roofs that are 5+ years old, dated from the time they put it on. So now they're probably looking at replacement. So how do we deal with that?
This comes up all the time. And this is the best way to explain it whenever something happens, like if they have solar. So let me hear your question. So a homeowner has solar on their house and there's damage.
Let's do it the simple way. They're getting an inspection. Buyer loves it. I'll take solar. No problem. We got that worked out. They'll transfer it over. But the roof is 12, 13 years old at this point, and it's already getting to the point at the end of its life. So how do we address that?
So first, it has to be addressed at the time of transaction. And if it wasn't addressed, let me start.
Whoever sold them
that should have already told the homeowner what to do if this does happen, so they know exactly what to do. Now, my process is, and how I explain it, is if they purchase the system, there needs to be warranties included. This is the most important part about having a system for your protection, just in case something like this happens. And there's warranties that cover anything that the manufacturer warranties don't cover. So there's some outsourced warranties that I always recommend that cover your parts and labor, roof penetration, any repair costs. It's included in that warranty protection. Now, the only thing that isn't covered, so that's probably the best thing, is that solar is more than likely covered under their warranties. The only thing that's not covered is acts of God damage. So acts of God damage here in Texas is a big concern, is hail, right?
Or tornadoes.
And anything that is due to acts of God, they're going to call their home insurance. And on day one that they get installed, they need to add this to their policy. So that's their first step. Is because if I don't tell that homeowner to add this to their policy, then I'm doing them a disservice, because if there's any damage to that system and it's acts of God, then they have to come out of pocket. So with that being said, is if they need a new roof or if there's damage to the system, file a claim. And if the system's damaged due to acts of God, your insurance is going to pay for it because that's in your claim, and you just pay your deductible. So that's what we mostly see, because
here's where probably the more common scenario, the way I'm thinking, and you're right, solar panels should probably be included in your insurance policy, but let's say it's not.
Well, you need to. Or no damage.
Well, I'm just saying no damage to the solar panel, but my roof is old.
Oh yeah. So
we're going to need to remove the solar panels, replace the roof, and then put the solar panels on. There's a cost. I think I've seen deductibles or whatever they call it for the cost of $500 or whatever they might build into the program, that the homeowner is out that amount just for the install crew, labor only, to take off. And then the new roof goes on and then they put it back on. Correct me on some of these.
When it comes down to that, file a claim. So if there's damage and they need a new roof, it sounds like they do. We're, as the solar contractor, going to bill the insurance that they're going to pay for it, because
if it's included in the claim, but there may be an out-of-pocket cost.
Yeah.
Out to the homeowner.
There is.
That's interesting because you could file a claim and yes, it could be absorbed by the insurance company. But if it's not covered, I mean, you're always assuming that it's covered in the insurance because that's what they should do.
I am assuming that, yes, but if there's not coverage to it, there's an invoice
That they would just have to pay.
gets sent to the homeowner that contractors might go to because they can work whatever they need to work out to accommodate their needs. But the first thing is by what we're doing here is make sure it's done before that even happens, right? But if it does happen, then we're going to get an invoice for a detach and reset. And the roofer is going to re-roof it, and then the solar company will put the solar system right back on. It's a matter of who's paying the invoice. So let's spread that message to a lot of agents out there is make sure every homeowner has that included in their policy. And that solves the problem there.
Okay. Any other specific things that we want to talk through? Those are some of the common things that I run into as a agent and pushback that I get on, solar panels.
I think that's the biggest.
I feel like the payoff is probably one of the biggest ones that I get from buy side. They're like, I don't want to take on the solar. I'll take the panels, but I don't want to. And it's just a direct line item that comes right off the selling side.
Yeah. And that it's all about how you present it. So,
all right, let's talk about that. Right. So I know there's something, and you've offered this to me. I had a house in Little Elm. We were trying to sell on my team, and her house was identical to the house next door. She had solar panels. She just put them on. And then she decided, you know what? I want to go ahead and list. I'm older. I don't need this big house. I'm ready to go ahead and sell. And we sold her the home originally. And then we find out when we were going to list it that she put solar panels on. And she got the benefit of the tax credit. And she still had let's just say a $30,000 payoff. She was willing to pay off the entire thing just to sell the property. And the equivalent home next door did not have solar panels. So we almost took that whole cost out and just said, apples to apples, we need to compete with them. So it's an immediate hit for her. What would you advise? And you mentioned this before. What would help you is if you had the documents when they bought it, you could review it and give better advice on how to appropriate and deal with the solar panels in this transaction, kind of like an audit. Yeah, I was thinking of it kind of like that. So talk a little bit about you doing an audit for real estate agents that have solar panels and they're selling them to try to demystify, right, some of the challenges they go.
Yeah, I think that right there would be your first step is to find someone to get advice from. And that's what audits are, to get a full assessment of what you're actually dealing with. First thing that I would need is their lender. Like, who is the finance company that did their solar system? That's my first start. Because then from there, I can look to see if they have good transferable policies, which most do. My second one is going to see the brand of the equipment. So we have something to present to the potential buyers. So that's what, solar friendly agents, there's a certification that people can get. And that's what is being gone through that certification is how do you pique the right interest to a potential buyer with a home that has solar? So that'd be my first task for a lot of people to do is get curious, because they're losing out on an opportunity right now to either sell that home first or to pick up business, right? And we'll talk later about that. But if anyone has problems with their homeowner that's selling their house with solar, call someone that you can get advice from. Call a local solar company so you can ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, but the first question that you should be asking is who's the lender on their property? Is it a loan or a lease? So that's, I guess, who is the finance provider?
What's the difference for a buyer dealing with a house that has a lease or a loan? I mean, I understand the equipment doesn't come with it, but they could hypothetically, I would think 90% of them should transfer, right? When you think most probably offer some transferable clause, because that would really be penalty. It'd be an enormous penalty to the seller to have to absorb 100% of it to sell it.
Well, that was the biggest problem, was that right there wasn't addressed, because they would have to pay off the whole balance of the loan prior to them selling. And that doesn't make any sense, because what they worked for their equity is now being deducted from their solar loan.
For sure. And the solar panel is a long game issue, right? It's a benefit long game.
Yeah. And, you got to think of it as the lender. They want to make sure that there's solutions so this doesn't happen again. So they solved that problem a long time ago. And now our job is to get that addressed, because it's all transferred. And the balance of the of the loan that the homeowner that is selling the house is going to be notated. So the real estate agent can peak the right interest by how many thousands of dollars that is paid off, so they don't have to pay that.
Shit.
And then the new potential buyer assumes the balance, which is great because it's an asset and you know where every dollar is going, just like your house. And the benefit of it is that they don't have to pay what the homeowner that's selling paid, that's a benefit as looking into it. And the benefit for the person that's selling it is I don't have to pay the remaining balance. So it's actually a good handoff exchange for a lot of people. It's a win-win scenario for both parties, but it has to be the right system and the right warranty is set in place, because if you have those two right there, it's a perfect transaction. Now, if there is a problem with the solar system, we'll have things set in place. And that's where you and I can really partner, is if there's someone that doesn't have the right solar system, they need to call a solar company because that problem can be solved. It's so simple to do that. And all I need to see is what's going on. And then we can assess it and get them solutions so the new owner of that house isn't being affected. I think that's the one thing I'm most passionate about right now, is because when people hear bad about solar, it's not solar. It's the person that installed or the providing contractor. Because I have clients that are happy. They're having great success, negative, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, a negative utility bill. Here in Texas, they offer a 1-to-1, it's called net metering, and they buy back every kilowatt that your system's overproducing, and it's going to be as a bill credit. That's a whole nother discussion, because if solar is done the right way, there's going to be a negative utility bill, and it's your balance that you're collecting.
You say the right way. I mean, not everyone has enough roofs to put in, like 2-story homes have less roof, more house. I can't think that they could actually create a negative bill, but I would understand why a 1-story with a lot of roof would have the opportunity to do that because of the efficiency.
Well, you got to think, I'm going to address that, because you think bigger the house, bigger the solar system. It's really not. It's actually how much electricity is being used in that specific house.
Well, that's what I mean by bigger the house.
They'll use more electricity because of how bigger the home is. But I'll have people ask me, well, they're paying this, how much would my payment be? Well, that's actually not the question to be asked, is how much electricity are you using in your house, and I'll get you exactly what you're paying. So we assess this based on their consumption. How much electricity are you using on a monthly basis?
Well, let me dumb it down to the common, right? So the thing is, so I've got kilowatts per hour or kilowatts per month. I figure out what that number is, and then you can actually do a diagram of the home and look how much solar panel space we have and how much it'll collect based on the sun direction, all those type of things, coverage, because I got trees in my backyard and I things that I've got to overcome. Then you can determine what that actual return is and savings would be pretty cleanly.
100%.
So I gave you one in Bernie, Texas. How did they come out? They have sheds, they have pergolas, they have second homes on the lot, and of course their home itself. How did do you remember if they came out?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that was a fun project for me because I love to do custom projects based on their request. And he wanted, if I'm not mistaken, a pergola built.
Yes. So there's a future plan, and he kind of gave you dimensions and what the square footage would be. So you could do a diagram and kind of put it together.
And this is actually going to be a good walkthrough. So let's start from the very top. You had a client that was interested in solar, right? Then what did you do at that point?
Well, I don't know anything about solar, so I connected it to an expert. So I said, well, Keenan is an expert in this. Why don't you guys have a conversation?
I think every real estate agent needs to have a referral partner in the space, whatever they're doing, roofs, HVAC. I'm the solar expert. So all I'm doing is bouncing back off of your trust, because that Aaron, and I'm pulling it up right now, trusted you. And then you passed it to me and I built out the entire system. So at that point, I got his CPS bill. And
what's a CPS?
Utility bill, City of Public Service. It's down in San Antonio. And everyone that pays a utility bill has a 12-month graph on their bill.
Yeah, at the top, yeah.
So I need that to properly assess their system, because on a yearly basis, let's just say they're using 12,000 kilowatts a year. I can build a system in our software that generates 12,000 kilowatts a year, and you're truly offsetting your energy consumption from what you're given.
Is that way you baseline? You just say, hey, let me get to zero, or do you try to just maximize the amount of roof space? I mean, I realize there's a lot of variables here.
There's so much into that because I'm asking questions. So me as a seller, I'm a question-based seller. I want to ask questions to see what goals and problems that I need to accomplish. And most of the time, people want to lower their utility bill. And in that scenario, I can offset their utility bill 100%. So, and then I can look at the numbers that they're currently paying, because there's a rate right now, a price per kilowatt is what you call it.
You can do that on any house.
You can do that. I can do that on any house. And there's not one problem that you can't solve based on what type of conditions that they give us. And one of them is a roof space, limited roof space.
Of course. Or it's under cover all day.
Your client was a perfect scenario because in limited roof space, or some people don't like the way they look.
Well, they had a lot of trees in a part of their house that probably prevented the need for putting solar panels in that space.
And so there's an alternative. And what that alternative was to build a custom solar pergola. And this is a hot topic right now because all the brand new home builds that are getting built right now do not have patios. But what do? They get a patio, right? So you're solving a problem that they're already going to get, which on our presentation, they said we were going to build a pergola anyways, right? So that's something that we can solve. First and foremost is every client is different, to answer your question. We assess that client based on their energy needs. And there's a 12-month graph on every single utility bill. And that's our first step. You say it in a best scenario is you can't get any results from a doctor without going in to get your blood drawn. I can't assess your monthly payment or a proper system without getting your utility bill.
Of course.
That's the first step. And I think...
What do you think you landed with them? So at 12, I mean...
It was Aaron. What's the last name?
Oh, Williams.
Williams. On the assessment, because it's controlled on the contractor space, is Encore in Texas across the whole state is charging a certain price per kilowatt. All I have to do is harness the price that the solar panels are doing because it's the same electricity. So
it's all about kilowatts. It doesn't even matter how much the cost is on the whatever Encore. It kind of matters in the sense that it's your payment per month, but it's all about how much kilowatts. If I'm waiving the
100%. Yeah. So if I can waive a kilowatt, then it doesn't matter what. Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more because if you're paying right now, Texas is 17 cents per kilowatt. That's an average. And it's only going up. If I can get your rate down to 15 cents with solar and lock it in, tell me that wouldn't be a good decision because you're saving money day one. You're locked in at 15 cents per kilowatt and it's not going up. So you're locking in at inflation. And then every dollar that you're paying is going towards a principal asset that eventually goes away. So that's where I'll talk to people. And I think I'm gifted. And this is a gift from God for me, is to be honest and to tell people in the best way scenario, you're doing the same thing with your electricity now that you did with your house. So why wouldn't you consider this? And if I can get your rate down to 15 cents where you're paying 17, numbers don't lie, right? You're paying 17 cents right now. And I can show you can pay 15 cents.
The 15 cents is the payoff of the system is what you're looking at. It's not about being at zero because they may be at zero energy payment, but as you're trading that utility bill with a payment to the system, and you're saying that system payment is going to be about 15 cents.
100%.
So you're going to say your payment on utilities are going to come down and you're not going to have any net offsetting costs. So anyway, I know I'm kind of simplifying.
And the first step on that is with proper softwares that we have, you can input their utility bill and it's going to tell them a full proposal on the rate that they could be potentially paying with solar. So my recommendation is for anyone that's in the real estate industry is to get your clients a free quote. They have nothing to lose. It's complimentary. And then over time, people will get more educated about how solar really does work. But if you don't take that action, you'll never know.
I know I'm putting you on the spot with them. Do you have their information?
Here it is right here. So it's in Boren, Texas, right?
Bernie.
I'm still learning. I'm actually from Colorado, so Texas is my new home. So
But it looks like it's like Jason Bourne.
forgive me on that. I do have Aaron's pulled up here. And this is a great scenario because we got the utility bill. That's all you had to do. And I call it the peak and pass method. Any real estate agent can pique someone's interest and then pass it to an expert. And that's what you did. You saw someone that was piqued interest and then you passed them over to me.
Well, in that sense, they were already peaked, so that made it pretty easy.
Their solar system that they have here is with their current utility, they're paying 18 cents a kilowatt.
Okay.
If they pay cash for the system, because that's the best deal anyone can get, not too many people do that. They're from our software is paying 7 cents. That's crazy because whenever people look at how much can you save, there's no one that's getting solar because they're going to spend more money. It doesn't make any sense. So my job is to tell people the only reason why you would consider doing this is if you save money versus spend more. And my job today is to give you enough information so you can get that.
I think where I get confused is the system's now paid off. We now have, assuming whatever kilowatt I'm using, I've got a system that offsets that kilowatt. I should be at zero usage, right? Then what's the 7 cents per kilowatt? I don't understand what that is.
Yeah. And this all comes down, there isn't a cost at all because you have it all paid off and it's generating all of your electricity day one because you own it free and clear. So when it comes down to energy, you got to think of this as where you're getting your energy currently in Texas, it's Oncor. The only difference on what you're getting your electricity is a different source, which is coming from the sun. And they can calculate with these systems over a period of time how much you're paying per kilowatt with all software. So I don't want to get into how it's calculated, but the software with algorithms and bill utility.
You're saying the net cost difference is going from 17 to 7 cents, including the costs of paying off the system. So there may be zero utility bill every month, but the net difference will be about 10 cents an hour less cost.
Yes.
If you added up the total cost. So that's their save.
Yes. Why do
So they'd be saving, the full utility bill. Let's say it's $500 a month. That's $6,000 a month.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. Oh,
yes. And I would say
at the cost of $2,000 a month or $2,000 a year.
And then just know where that $2,000 a year is going.
Now I understand.
Wasted money. Why do people, I'm going to ask kind of a general broad question. Why do people go to Costco? Why do they buy a membership and invest into that membership to get lower prices?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the bulk purchase is supposed to get them lower price.
They're doing that with solar. Is if people know where their money is going, they're going to justify paying that much because of the payoff that they're going to be seeing versus if they went to Kroger, because they're paying more for the same exact. That's the best way I can explain it is Costco is a lower rate. And why would you want to go to Kroger and pay a higher rate for the same exact X, Y, and Z? You're doing the same thing with electricity. And over time, our jobs as, leaders and I call it discipleship. We're supposed to share this because if we don't share it, then they don't know. So that's my mission.
Very good. So there are specific things. Is there anything else you want to add to it? Because we talked about this, real estate agents, you offering benefit to real estate agents and helping them. And we could talk briefly about the FHA loan that they have coming out.
Yeah, I think we should definitely just touch on that to get people excited about what type of leverage that they can give with a zero down FHA, smart, eco-friendly. But we'll talk towards the end.
Sure. Benefits to real estate agents.
The benefits for real estate agents is number one, they trust you. I will always lean towards this is people that you're doing business with, they trust you for a reason. And we're referring things out already, right? So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you refer like internet or any services to your clients as a bundle package? Do you have any joint venture partners?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've got some different relationships and stuff that I absolutely refer out, right? So I've got inspectors. We have a concierge service for utilities and home warranty. I refer all these things as a part of my.
Okay. And
that's why they come to me because I know.
Are you getting paid for any of those joint ventures? That's a question I would ask is why not? Because you're sending people business. The same thing with real estate agents. The benefit of adding solar to their referral partner concierge service, I would say that because they trust you and they're going to do business with the person that you refer out because they trust you, is that you're adding it. So number one benefit is you're adding additional revenue that they're not getting. So why wouldn't someone consider adding a partner and then passing it to them because you'll make additional money?
They don't have to know anything.
They don't have to know anything. If they want to continue that path, because I have two sides of it, and I have agents and roofers and that don't want to learn solar, but they have people that they're sending to me, and I do a joint venture on that, so they can do that option number one. Option number two is actually push it to an expert, and then over time you'll get to learn the verbiage, the building the system, selling the right system. Over time you can just replace myself. So those are the two options I think everyone should be offering to make additional money.
And then you have the audit opportunity where if someone is selling a home and don't know what to do with the property or this with the solar panel system, they can come back to you and you can kind of review some things to give language and opportunities on how to sell it. That doesn't directly help you up front, but it could be a referral opportunity for
Absolutely.
you, I'm sure, in the future. Last thing is FHA is creating this EcoSmart loan, and there's still more details coming out about the specific properties and how it works, but it allows you to purchase the property and you can roll in a solar panel system and not have it directly be affected by the appraisal. Okay, so that's where the benefit is. So the home you're purchasing is $400,000. We're going to put a $40,000 solar panel system on it. You now have a loan for $440,000 minus your down payment for the original loan, and it does not impact if the appraisal of the home is $400,000. They do not consider that against the second the additional cost of adding it. But rolling it in up front makes it a lot easier to just put it all as part of one package.
That's true.
Right. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. And we did some math on it, and it shows that your payments for separating them are a lot more than if you would just combine them versus doing a 5% down conventional or a 3.5% down FHA. Your payments actually will be a lot less that way and rolling in. It just makes things a lot simpler.
Yeah, and this is brand new. So they're right now in a pilot program with this EcoSmart FHA loan. And I think by that one leverage is having, which was my second point, is having a competitive edge. So any real estate agent that's looking
Yeah,
to add
most have a
solar,
negative perspective. So if you could now be more positive,
100%.
now you can create, because like I said in the beginning, whether you like it or not, solar panels are here and they're being put on more and more homes. So it's going to be a necessary evil that we have to work through. I know I'm saying it in a negative way, but that's the way that a lot of agents kind of approach it.
Which is not my, I guess, problem if you don't want to consider looking further. I'm going to read something to you. It says your clients, which clients are out there, are going solar with or without you. 1 in 5 homes, and I have this article right here. It says 1 in 5 homes will have solar in 7 years. So if you take a look down the streets, not too many people have it, right? So that's an opportunity that someone is going to be taking. So I like to look at numbers like that and where the future is going, and more smart EV charging stations, electric vehicles are coming out. So that's something to consider. And that was leading to my second point, is having a competitive edge. And as a real estate agent in this saturated market, you might know this question: how many agents are here? And
I'd say 5,000.
And if you had, let's just say, a competitive tool that you can leverage to pick up additional business,
That's 5,000 actually selling. There's probably like 20,000, but let's say 5,000 selling.
And there's not too many agents that are selling solar and real estate at the same time.
That's true. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Would that give you a competitive edge to bring something to the table that they don't have to offer to your client? Because it's all about, in my opinion, helping people. Sure. And if they're asking these questions and you don't have a way to give them a solution.
Sure. When you sell a, it's probably obviously the buyer. So you're selling a home to a buyer, and I primarily am selling homes as a listing agent. But if you're selling a home to a buyer, offering, as a consideration, would you want to consider solar and how it would benefit you in your utility bills? Absolutely could be something you can add.
Number one, because I like to just recap, is giving that real estate agent additional revenue stream. So picking up business that you're not getting, I think everyone should have that. in their portfolio because it's based on trust. And I've seen that with multiple industries. Clients that are doing business, they trust you. So why not find a joint venture partner to make additional revenue stream that you're missing out on right now? Benefit number 2 is competitive edge. This new eco-friendly and eco-smart FHA loan is just having a competitive edge to give someone a solution. And those options, do have options presented. This is just another option that you can be presenting. Not saying you're going to sell it, but saying, I'm going to ask you a question on this. What's the benefit? I'm reading right here. It says eco-smart. They can get the same down payment from a traditional FHA or a traditional conventional loan. Same down payments, and it looks identical. Same interest rate, same term, principal interest, identical. But they get an additional, right here, $570,000 compared to $540,000. They get $30,000 more to roll in energy efficient products. And my first thing is, why wouldn't someone consider that? Is that something that you can answer? Why wouldn't someone consider rolling in?
And versus doing it separate?
Yeah. So this right here was same interest, same everything. Why wouldn't someone?
My simple answer is because my payoff is that much higher on a house that doesn't appraise.
Well, but think about this, because most people don't assess this one thing while they're in the house is how much am I going to be paying on my electric?
Okay, they're monthly.
Offsetting that.
They'll gain the benefit monthly. They're rolling it all in. There's an easy benefit there. They probably get the interest might be a little bit better versus getting the independent loan for the solar panel. I'd understand those benefits, but my challenge is now I've got a 540 house that is now my payoff is 570 minus the cost of down payment. So my appraisal is not going to cover that shortage. So that's where I would run into that's where I'd run into. I understand the benefits, and my overall payment might be lower, and rolling it into one loan might be certainly a lot easier.
You got to look at it as in 2 transactions. In my
and I would rather do it that way, is do it 2 transactions. I would rather buy the home and then do a second lien for just the solar panels, so that way they're separated. That's probably, even if it costs me a little more, that's probably the way I would think about it.
I like simplicity, and I'll say this: there's 2 types of people. There's Sean that want 2 different payments, and I say that in a joking manner, but it's a matter of knowing how simple this could be and having that solution.
If I'm going to be there for 10, 15 years, absolutely.
If they're dead set. So the new Tesla.
I'll give you another way to explain. Where this would be a win is I'm looking at making a transition to a home in another area. It's a 1-story. It's going to be a much larger square foot home with the ability, we're going to be there indefinitely.
Yeah.
No issue taking on something like that because I don't have a short-term exit on it. And quite honestly, I'm in real estate, and I educate everybody, stop having short-term exits on a lot of your properties. Keep them, because you build net worth retaining real estate. But that would make total sense. Roll it all into one deal. I'm not going to be moving. I'm not selling. No problem.
Yes, and I want to make sure it's clear on what this option is only doing. And you're not selling this option. It's just something that you're presenting, right?
Oh, there's scenarios. This would be a good option.
This would be a perfect scenario for someone that's already looking to get the new Tesla 3. So right now we have the new power walls. These things right here are backing up any power outages, but they're also offsetting utility bills. And you can roll the Tesla, I call it the Tesla solar package. 2 Tesla Powerwall 3s and a solar system up on your roof. And that's going to eliminate all power failure, which is a big concern here in Texas.
For how long?
It depends.
And well, solar is running indefinite.
So the Tesla, to say it in the simplest way, is assessed based on what do you want backed up. So my question to a homeowner is, during a power outage, because you've had one.
Sure, you want your HVAC and you want your fridge. Okay.
But everyone's different, which is kind of crazy. I have a client that just backed up her pool because of the tragedy that happened.
Yeah, it can be incredibly expensive if it's not running.
The best way to explain batteries is getting in front of the expert to ask the right questions. And each battery is storing a certain amount of electricity inside of it. And then they're directly queued to the breaker boxes that you want backed up. And if you want your HVAC backed up, and then let's just say small things, internet, lights.
I would think your fridge.
That's typically what I see. You'll need 2 Tesla Powerwall.
My kids can put the iPads down. I need a fridge. I need an HVAC, but keep going.
And there's technology out there that gives you full trackability on these new applications that you can see exactly how much
Yeah,
battery is
how
left.
much you're using and how much is available.
And all it is balancing this thing out because of the new, let's just say, a lot of my clients are doing it's a smart breaker box and joint ventured with the Tesla Powerwall 3, where you can control breaker boxes and itemize this thing on a workload. It's like, why wouldn't someone have this option to a client that's already going to get it? And they're going to get not only the business from having that option, but also getting paid on the solar commission. So they're double dipping.
We're running a little long, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of close this up. I think a lot of good questions. Thank you, Keenan, for helping me with all that stuff. For those that are interested in what you're sharing and knowing more about you or connecting with you, what is the easiest way for them to connect with you? Do you have a X account? How do you connect?
We'll post in the YouTube.
Sure.
I'll post below. You can go to my website, which is the contractor side of my business, which is all based on roofers. So roofersellsolar.com. That's the main point right there. You can go to my social media, search Keenan Garcia. But also my social media, like Instagram, Roofer Sell Solar. Shoot me a direct message. For me, I want to get this out there because it takes one person to share the information, the right information to the next agent. And this compound effect will get the myths and the concerns and everything addressed that's happening right now, but it starts with us. So I want to honor Sean for having me here, because this right here might reach 10 people. It might reach more, but that's what we've committed to ourselves, is to get the information out there.
Sure. All right. Well, I appreciate that, Keenan. I appreciate everyone that jumped in. Absolutely. And if you want to connect with me or you're interested in the content that I create here, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And that's Shaun, Shaune, Corbett, Corbett. I love to hear from any of you out there. Reach out to me directly. Thank you.